Beware of the tarantula. Anyway, hello.
He got in first.
Welcome to Shambles Stay at Home Festival. I'm Robin. Somewhere on this screen is Josie, I think.
Hello, I remain Josie Long, and she'll do so until my death.
Ah, okay. I was expecting some kind of twist about the age of 44. That's what I was hoping was going to happen. So we were talking about this just before we appeared. You've been watching Quiz, no spoilers, etc.
No spoilers, but I love it, and I love Matthew McFadden so much. I think he's such a fantastic actor. He's like so full. Like his performances are so full, you can just feel all the different things. Yeah, I absolutely loved it, and I recommend it. It was brilliant.
Does he play Corporal Bobby Cheat or whatever?
He didn't cheat. What's happened is that the
hang on, Chris
yes, but he knows.
Juiced him yet, but he mustn't hear. No. I'm
not going to spoil the show, but we all know what happened. But what's been so fun is that the show is so well acted and so thoughtful and humane and so well written that by the end of it, you really sort of feel all these complicated feelings re-examining the story. And there's been a lot of Major Ingram truthers online now. And it's been a lot of fun. I mean, it's just
right. I might give it a go at some point, but it's a bit like I haven't watched the thing about Bad Tiger, Good Tiger, Funny Man, whatever it's called. And yes. But I don't want to. The reason I won't bother with the tiger thing is there is an amazing film called Raw, starring Tippi Hedren, who was in Alfred Hitchcock's Birds and Marnie, etc. And it is just incredible because she used to live with her former husband and their children, which basically with a bunch of lions, and they made a film where you can clearly see and it's meant to be a drama, and it really is, because sometimes when the lions are there, they clearly really are attacking people, and people are hospitalized, and people you go,
oh God, I didn't mean to laugh at that.
Scarring on his scalp than he had in the previous scene. It is one of the craziest films because you can clearly see it should not be made. Scenes of people in distress at the fact there are loads of lions in their house is actually people in distress because there's loads of lions in their house. My friend Johnny Main showed it to me. It's the
ROAR.
Yeah, it's just raw. And
this is like she was so traumatized that she was like, I know what I'll do.
Yeah,
I'll get my revenge. With lions.
Yeah. You know, I can handle birds. I can handle any animal. Really, Tippy? Yeah, whatever. All right, then. Okay, the lions were a mistake, right? And of course, Melanie Griffith's in it as well because Melanie Griffith's her daughter, and it's a really.
Get into showbiz. That's really interesting. Wow, I didn't know that. Gosh, that's so interesting. It's so funny to me as well because when someone's kind of Hollywood royalty like that, I treat it very differently than I think in this country, because in Hollywood I'm like, wow, the magic has been passed on generation to generation. It's very silly.
Goldie Hawn line, the Horn Russell line. But anyway, that will be my top recommendation. Is if you've not seen Raw, it is a genuinely disturbing film.
What sort of era was it made?
It was about 1980, 1981. It took quite a long time to film, again, partly due to the healing process involved for, we're going to have to stop filming for 3 months until the stitches can be taken out. Bizarre.
Oh, gosh, wow.
Have you got show and tell this morning, Josie?
I do.
Before even that, I'm going to make it. We're going to get this out of the way right at the top, and we will mention again. There is a tip jar. One of the reasons that we do this show, one of it was to create a kind of sense of connection for people, especially. I mean, it seems like a long time ago now when we first had Mark Gatiss on and stuff. She's nearly 4 weeks ago. Our first thought was we want to make sure there's some kind of connection for people because we could see that people already
and for each other, right? I mean, I think this is quite instrumental in us not spinning out, you and I.
I don't know which way it's going. Sometimes I feel like I'm trapped in a virtual submarine movie with you. It's a little bit of both.
To be fair, yesterday I did sort of lose it a bit. Yes, you're right. Sorry.
Well, we wanted to make sure that we could make some money for some of the performers and some of the art centres that we're going to be struggling during this time. Because, of course, if you follow, it's all right for some of us. Some of us have other kind of support things, but there are also a lot of performers that don't and who do work day day-to-day kind of like I've got my Friday gig and then I pay that bill. And so this week we've seen a huge drop. And I do understand a lot of you have donated, and it's been great. This week we've donated to the Rondo Theatre and to the Old Fire Station in Oxford and to the Little Angel Puppet Theatre, which does amazing work and great shows for kids and adults. It's wonderful stuff. But we want to keep trying to make sure that we can support those things so that they exist when we come out from this isolation. So I'm slightly bigger pitch.
No, I was talking to a friend of mine who, he works in government, and he's organising the logistics of delivering food parcels to people and care parcels to people who are kind of vulnerable and unable to get them. I was talking about my work, and he said, "You're like the cherry on the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs." And I was like, well, yes, but I do think it is important for us to try and sort of see what we can do to keep arts and culture alive, because it's never been more needed as well, even though it is not necessarily at the forefront of people's minds.
Also, but actually the main thing is for those people who will be receiving money, they're not receiving money to immediately go out and just buy some paints to do they're receiving money so that they can go and buy food and keep living.
Oh my God, completely. Yeah.
So it's not going on luxury silks for a new production of Verdi's Otello. As far as I know, there may be some of that going on as well, but I don't think it is.
Here's my show and tell.
Otello, I can't really remember.
Here's my show and tell. I owned a copy of the Book of Calm, but I bought it secondhand, and I find that it's not calming me down, right? So there's one that says, "Imagine if there was a spider in your ear, but you didn't know about it, and it laid a big load of eggs."
That does not, does it?
Not making me feel calm.
What you need to do with that little Book of Calm is get a red Sharpie, and just in the corner of each page put things like "No!" exclamation mark, and then just donate it to your local charity bookshop. Mine is. I would love that. I would love if it had.
What's that thing on your leg? Have you had a doctor see it? Yeah, you were saying
the attic. It's not just rats. This is. I'm going to show off a little bit and show a prize that I won.
Ooh!
Show and tell.
Oh!
Yeah, there we go.
What's prize?
Well, this is to Robert Ince, Timed Out Award winner 2006 for standing achievement to stuff. And what this actually is my friend Michael Legg. When I got a thing from Time Out for doing some stuff, and they used to give you an award, and they just stopped. They just sent you a letter saying, "Here it is. We haven't got the money anymore to have a ceremony or anything." And Michael felt that was unfair, so bought me this judo prize and had that engraved at a sports trophy shop. Thank you very much, Michael. I'm sorry, the band are beginning to play. I'm going to have to wind up. There we are. We are joined by some. Well, sorry.
No, I'm just saying, excuse my coughing. I am trying to manage it. It's so that I can help you to win another.
I love how you psychosomatically react to, because you had a very stripy face last week when you were watching Tiger, Scary Weird Man, and now you've got a little tickly cough. Don't watch Endeavour. I don't know where that will take you.
Now, I'm so excited about our first guest. I'm absolutely thrilled to have him on. It's Chris Addison. Hello. How are you?
I'm good. I'm actually quite good. Hey, yes, I'm all right. I don't have a cough, I don't think. Although, as you were coughing, I started to do it along with you. I feel I take other people's symptoms.
You'll do anything to fit in. Anything to fit in.
Yeah. Or do anything to fit in. And,
I was just thinking, the first thing that I was is, having known you for 25 years, I think it is. I've known you pretty much since you started stand-up, I think. Yeah. We talked a lot about people missing stand-up because of what's going on now, but you got very high up in stand-up. You won awards for the Radio 4 shows and stuff like that, and I think you played Hammersmith Apollo and that. Then you've moved on and directing and writing and all those things. Where has that urge? Is that urge now entirely? Can you funnel it all into that different sense of creation, or sometimes
you miss it?
That's an excellent question. I never. Most of my career is, as my detractors and supporters will agree, an accident, and that is I never meant to be a stand-up in the first place. So,
hang on, what did you mean to be?
Well, I'd meant to be a railway engineer, but I just walked into the wrong office. No, I meant to. I'd always wanted to be a theatre director when I was. I say always. It wasn't. That's what I wanted to do when I was 5. Little Fisher Price. But I wanted to, like, from a sort of my kind of time in sixth form on, where I got quite obsessed with reading plays and all that, and going to the theatre. I loved the idea of being a theatre director. And that was exactly what I was planning to do for several years, and I started to do stand-up because it was in the year after I left university, that dark, horrible year that nobody tells you about. And I really like when you're at university, you can do anything. You can put anything on. Anyone can. There's a bunch of other losers around with nothing to do, like you, who there's a load of rooms free that the union will let you stand in and all of that. So it's dead easy to put stuff on then. And then once you get out, it's really hard. And I sort of needed a creative outlet, some kind of performance creative outlet. I wasn't actually, oddly enough, what I was thinking about as creatively as something that I wanted to do, in the theatre directing isn't performing particularly, but I found performance was the thing that I wanted to just stand up. I always loved comedy, and stand up's logistically the easiest thing that you can do. It's because everybody else, or go along if you can go along to an open mic night, you just have to take some ideas with you. That's it. Everybody else sorts everything else out. So I went and did that. And it worked a bit, and then it kind of took off, and I found myself doing that for as long as I did. So my entire career over the last 25 years has been basically, I've never had a thing in mind that I was going to do. I will play the Hammersmith Apollo or whatever. I've never had those sorts of goals in mind. I've always just gone and done the things that have interested me, really, and. So I didn't mean to stop doing stand-up, and I still don't really think. I mean, it's only in the last couple of years that I've thought to myself, I'm not thinking in terms of the next thing I do will be write a stand-up show. I always thought that when I was directing Veep and other things that I've done since then. Every time I've gone, obviously the next thing I'll do is I'll write and tour a stand-up show. And it's only now that I'm not sort of thinking in that way. But to go back to your actual question, in terms of, I really miss it. I do really miss it. I miss the performance aspect of it greatly. I miss the immediacy of it, because you definitely don't get that if you're trying to create a TV or a show or a film. That and there are so many layers of approval you have to go through. So many people giving you notes. The amount of control and visceral response and immediacy that you get as a stand-up is you can't get that anywhere else. You can't. So unless you're a performer. Poet, really, who wants to be that? So I did find that when I'm on set, directing on set, it's totally a performance. Like I realized it recently that I all of my sort of being on stage instincts go into that, and that's an extended period of time. I made a film a couple of years ago. That's an 8-week shoot. So 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week, for 13 hours a day, you're kind of on.
But it also makes sense to me in terms of reading the crowd. When you're on stage, you have to really understand what's going on and who's there. And I can imagine that with a crew as well, it's the same thing. You're understanding who everyone is, what they need, and how to kind of make it all work.
Absolutely. And when you're and it's in a sort of club comic point. From a club comic kind of point of view, as a touring solo show point of view, it's like being the compere, because the compare's job is to make that disparate group of people into a sort of an amorphous mass almost, to make them feel like they're part of a gang. And I think that's sort of been my approach to being on set. That I want everybody to feel like they're on this team doing this thing, going on this journey together. Which by no means that's not necessarily the case in a crew, right? Because the people at the sort of the heads of department, the production designer and the director of photography and the sound recorders, and all of those people across the board, they are sort of invested in that thing because they're on that project the whole time. They've had a creative input into it, and so they have some sort of investment. But there are huge numbers of people, particularly on a large project, a large scale project, who that's just their working day. What we do, what's the show today, or what's the film today? They turn up, they do brilliant work, and then they go away again, and maybe they'll be on something else tomorrow. So to make everybody feel like they're in the same teams, I think it's quite important. I know.
I'll give you a bit of a tip on that. I don't know if this will help, but they obviously had a lot of different people coming and going over the in their shows, and what they would do, this might help just when your next Hollywood kind of film, is they would all share different stories they had about Nicholas Parsons. So next time you're on set somewhere, Beverly Hills, wherever it might be, if maybe everyone on the set wants to share their stories about Nicholas Parsons, it worked for the goodies. That ran for 10 years. So
what I might have to do is just organise a Hollywood a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for Nicholas Parsons, and sort of opening to that, so they can get the general idea of.
Could you can I say Dynage's star? I think it was a Fred Dynage star. So
can I say I'm so disappointed that you weren't? I really thought you were about to say, can I suggest releasing a herd of tigers onto the set? Well, it's just like 5 or 6 tigers. It's been known to unite everyone against the tigers.
Well, that's what I was thinking when Chris was saying, when he was a child, he wanted to be a theatre director. And I thought, most of us want to be zookeepers. And what I imagined was the person who made Raw found that middle ground between being a zookeeper and also being a director.
Well, you've got to do what you know, haven't you? You've got to do it. Or in the case of the director of Raw, do what you don't know and just hope for the best.
I want to ask you, how finding this strange period of lockdown, what does it make you think about the future, and what does it make you think about creating stuff in the future?
I'm a very terrified person. So
this is a walk in the park.
My coping mechanisms is to not think about that. I really think that dealing with this is just a kind of each day at a time kind of thing. It's funny when it began. So the nature of my work, as you will understand, right? So what we do is kind of feast and famine, isn't it? There are long periods of time where we're actually in the house anyway, where we're preparing stuff. There's we spend months in the house and then months nowhere near the house. So this just feels like the months in the house period to an extent. But I have never, at the beginning of this, I've never found it busier than this period, being in the house, than this period, because people just kind of went crazy. They sort of went, right, what are we going to do? Okay, we're going to have to. Honestly, I'm being blessed Zoom and cursed Zoom. I've never had so many meetings in my life. Useful any of the meetings were. They were largely people trying to reassure themselves that we're doing stuff, and that has calmed down after about sort of 2.5 weeks. That's calmed down. I think people have exhausted themselves, or they've just run out of busy work. But I don't know. I can't tell what it's going to be like. None of us can tell what it's going to be like. What I think I want to avoid the inevitable feeling that I want to make something about this period, because everybody will do that. Like everybody's writing their coronavirus novel, everybody's writing their coronavirus screenplay, album, cycle of poems.
It's a waste of isolation, isn't it? Because I think if you end up focusing on just that, if you do have the privilege that we have of, if you are able to just kind of, batten down the hatches and you don't have a lot of the troubles other people, to focus on what is immediately in front of you, as opposed to going, now I have this period of isolation, I can go anywhere in my brain. So don't just stay with what's in the Daily Mail today, or what you can travel. I was saying yesterday, I'm lucky because a lot of what I spent an hour and a half yesterday talking to a cosmologist on the nature of God, because the thing that I'm working on is kind of beyond the plan. But that bit, it does seem to focus on, and you're right, finding the angle that is not going to be the same. It'll be like people's routines about, hey, you're smoking a joint. Oh my God. It's going to be the same received idea of the experience of isolation in some ways.
And also it's a massive trauma. And so if you think about the years following the war, the Second World War, then obviously there were war films, and that continued for a period of time. But also there were the Goons and other, huge kind of kickbacks against all that, because what people actually want coming out of a traumatic period is something comforting and something that is that helps them escape. It's a really interesting period for people in our line of work, this, because in general, previously, when things go to shit, comedy tends to do quite well. Because people want the release of comedy, and in the global downturn last time round, that it didn't affect comedy particularly, because that is the one thing. I
wonder if you could link it up to kind of the boom in stadiums as well. Actually, you could probably see that happening from about 2009, 2010.
It might be. But the interesting thing about that is because that's when comedy, that's where comedy started to price itself up.
Yeah.
Actually, the days of the circuit, and the circuit isn't as healthy now as it was then, but because of because stadium comedy is soaking up a lot of that, the available punters at great cost. But in the days when you go and spend £8 to get into a room above a pub on a Friday night and you'd see 4X and a compare, that was always a really good, cheap way of getting a laugh in a dark time. It's going to be fascinating to see whether comedy is something that can do anything with this period, whether there'll be a similar response, whether it is something that people want, or whether the venues will all be closed. So
what we might see is, because you're not going to be able to go back into the arenas, I think we're going to see a lot more door-to-door comedy. Do expect Michael McIntyre to just, come knocking on your door, just a couple of observations on your door knocker, and off again. I think that could be expected.
And all that for just £140.
We're going to go to Beck Hill in a moment. We have Beck Hill, and we also have Femi on later on, who's some of you might have seen. He's been on a few of the live shows done, Femi and Marco. But before you do your show and tell, which we're going to do after we've had Beck, we have a show and tell already. A lot of people on the live feed are asking, what is that thing sticking out of your wall that appears to be above your head? So if you look to your left, I hope I'm there. What is that? That's rather wonderful.
Mind your own business.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Have you got a guillotine behind you as well? Because I swear I'm seeing guillotines in every room.
Guillotine
yes,
vision.
behind your if I'm you, your right shoulder.
My right shoulder.
Yes, behind there. There's a guillotine in the window.
It's sort of. No, it's not. I'll hang on.
Disappointing.
It's this.
What is it?
It is a. Can you see that?
No.
It's a. Hang on. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll do it actually competently. Will I do it competently? Can I? You can't flip it on Skype.
It's great to see a director working.
Yeah, a good director doing
a film director.
It's my cinematographer.
It's an old medical balance.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's an old Victorian medical balance.
That's so cool.
That is why. Yeah, so it does have a sort of guillotine front on the case. Well spotted, Josie. Long 5 points to you.
The second guillotine style object we've had in the background.
Was it in Tim?
Yeah.
I wonder what that was.
There is a point in success in show business arrives. It's interesting. The things that a friend of mine whose partner is immunosuppressed said that the food package, they now send out food packages at the moment. Do you know about this?
This is my friend. He's doing that.
Yeah, and he said it's very like basically in this package there's some tinned soup and some dried food and stuff like that, and it just says this is not for anyone else in the house apart from this person. Do not go near it. If you are that person who is not immunosuppressed, do not touch these tins of soup.
Right.
So it's not that welcoming as a box.
Well, hang on. So you're saying our government was not very humane even when they were trying?
Well, no, it was trying to be humane. It was just quite locking its humanity. That's all. We're going to go over to Beck Hill, and then we're going to come back with your show and tell. And I won't ask anything else about anything that sticks out of your wall. So I'm hoping something else has grown out of your wall.
It's a cardboard stag's head.
It's pretty.
Well, if you can out your wall when we come back, that would be nice. A reminder again: the tip jar. This is we don't worry, we're not collecting money for the liberal media elite. We are collecting money for some of the artists who've hit the wall at this current time. And as we've said before, this is going to continue obviously for quite a while. The lack of work, and also for some of the venues we've given to Rondo and the old fire station, isn't it, Josie, in Oxford, and the Little Angel Puppet Theatre. And don't worry, we will not entirely remain in the south. We will keep kind of each time we can make some money, we will move around the UK with the different small art centres that need some kind of support, as well as the people who work for them and artists, volunteers, and all those things. Now, you've seen Beck Hill before. I think it was on maybe was it the second? I think it might have been the first Tuesday that we did this. Beautifully creative, wonderful ideas. Her show and tell. She's going to have a double show and tell for us now. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to her front room, Beck Hill.
Oh, that's awkward. I was just hanging out with my guillotine there. Hi, thanks for having me on. I'm glad you caught me because I've been busy spending all of my donation fees on luxury silks for the new Verdi opera. So I thought I would start by sharing I've been playing a lot of video games to pass this time, and I've actually been inventing video games as well. So what I wanted to do was share some of the video games that I've been inventing. If you're on the chat, feel free to yell in if you think you know what the name of the game's going to be. So starting with this one, it's a nice spin on a simple classic. Obviously here you've got a bunch of rusty nails. And, you've lost the top of my head. That's all right. You don't really need my head, do you? There we go. How's that? As long as you can see the flip chart, that's all that really matters. Let's move you a bit there. There we go. So here you've got a bunch of rusty nails. And then as they move down the screen, you want to try and line them up at the bottom. And as soon as you do that, that line, of course, will disappear. That obviously is tetanus. I like Robin's audiences more because sometimes when I do the sort of pub gigs that Chris was talking about, the last time I did that, a man just yelled out "tetanus," and he's nearly right. But speaking of anuses, this next one is a favourite of mine. I've ruined its bum. That, of course, is Street Fighter. The best thing about that is, in my accent, sounds exactly the same. And if Street Fighter wasn't your game when you were growing up, you might have preferred this one. This, of course, is Mortal Cabinet. Finish it. Only 25 more to go. No, I'm kidding. Right, this one, let's see if you guys can get this one in the chat. So this one you've got to go around. I don't know if you can see that in the shot. That is Puke Man. Now, some people in the chat probably would have said Backman, and that is a much, much better punchline. But I didn't realize that until after I'd written that, and that's Sharpie, so it's not going to change. This next one, you are the Pope. You got to go around delivering mass to various people while avoiding obstacles. That, of course, is Paperboy. Which that joke only works if you played Paperboy growing up. And I was 8 when I played Paperboy, and I remember basically the idea is you're like a Paperboy, you're throwing the paper at houses, and you'd have to like avoid dogs and stuff. But one of the obstacles that you had to avoid was like a punk rocker with a mohawk on a unicycle. And even as an 8-year-old, I remember playing that game and being like, this is highly unrealistic. And then I grew up and moved to Camden, and I've had to do that. I've seen punk on a unicycle. It's a thing. It's based on reality. And then this final one, let's see if you at home can get this. Oh, no. Oh, no, help me. Oh, no. Ah, help me. That, of course, is Grand Theft Auto. I love that. I didn't hear any sound except for Robin moaning at the end there, which is, frankly, my default response. My second show and tell. I'm actually going to ask anyone who's on the show if they'd like to join in on the audio, because this next one requires sound effects. And in fact, I'm going to try and get you closer so you can get a better shot of the flip chart there. So this one requires sound effects. So what I'm going to do is you guys can join along. Please join along at home as well. It's family friendly. If you've got kids, bring them in. And I'll give you a second to get ready, because the book I'm about to do is Everything Farts. So before we get started, I'm just going to get everyone to practice, both on the call and at home. So on the count of 3, do the biggest fart. Wow, I mean, you're going early there, but I like it. It is, we've all had a coffee. All right, so on the count of 3, everyone fart as loud as they can. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Perfect, because normally there's someone with me doing the fart sound, but if they're not visible, it just looks like it's me, which I love. All right, I think we're ready. Okay, let's go. Here we go. Old Dad's fart. Old Mum's fart. Even tiny baby's bum's fart. This truck fart. I really hope someone tunes in right now and they're like, oh, I wonder if Brian Cox is on talking about the universe and dark matter. This is a different type of dark matter. This van farts. It sounds like a duck when Gran farts. This door farts. These stairs fart. The Minister of Foreign Affairs farts. This puppy farts. This kitten farts. Even the Queen of Britain farts. Now everybody fart. I said let's all fart. But remember, you should never force farts.
Oops.
Oh.
And ladies and gentlemen, that is the end. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We've had the word through, and the Welcome Foundation will be giving you your grant.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Beck. Wonderful again. That is, no one else in the house knew what was going on. I have no idea what they think's going on now in my particular attic room. Beck, we should say you've put up some of your stuff online as well. Some recently you've put up more stuff, haven't you, for people to see?
Yeah. My whole 2019 show, I'll Be Beck, is up on either my Facebook page, which is Beck Hill Comedian, or on the Next Up Twitch stream, which is twitch.tv/nextupcomedy. And it's a show all about the future, which we live streamed the other night. There's a Q&A afterwards if you go back and watch it. And I got some of the stuff. I actually predicted some things, and it's quite eerie. Not like specifically, but there's a few moments where everyone in the chat during the live stream went,
It's a bit terrifying with stuff like that, where you go, why didn't I write a show where I was on a desert island and incredibly wealthy? Why did I write a show about people being trapped in their houses? That's no good.
Yeah, I know. I've definitely gone down the dystopia route. It's going to go much harder.
follow Beck on Twitter at Beck Hill Comedian. Where if you go there, then you'll find out all the other places you can check out Beck stuff. Website again, Beck?
At Beck Hill Comedian. Well, I did Beach Hill Comedian if you read it wrong.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Beck. See you again soon.
Yeah,
See you
thank
soon.
you.
Also, quickly mention coming up soon. Tomorrow we've got Doc Brown on, and on Monday we're finally going to get round to doing that Q&A with Mark Gatiss. As you may remember, on the first episode that we actually did, we never got round to. People have sent in loads of questions, so you can send in questions again now if you want as well. It's stay at home at cosmicshambles.com. Stay at home at cosmicshambles.com, and Mark answer all your questions, and that should be it. Sorry, Josie.
I was just repeating it in my own kind of voiceover voice. The thing that's been odd for me has been watching how adverts have now caught up to the situation. And I actually preferred it when adverts had not caught up to the situation. I much preferred it when I was like, what?
Well, I don't normally watch that much. I mean, I do watch things. I'm not one of those people. Who pretends that they don't watch things, but I don't watch television. So I'd never realised the close proximity between adverts for things to help you with your constipation and the use of lube. There's so many interesting visuals now that are placed. You're in watching some wonderful melancholy drama, and all you see is those who are bound and those who are just about to. And it's a lovely world, isn't it? I'm too old for this world. I really am.
Robin, you've got a new lease of life since you've been doing the boxing. Don't let them tell you that.
No, I just find it's that, and also the fact that you can't watch at most daytime channels. You can't enjoy watching an old Three Stooges movie because you'll then be told about how awful the world is for everyone else, and you should stop laughing. It's a very strange kind of. So anyway, I was also going to mention we got Patreon exclusive tonight at 8 p.m. tonight. We're going to be doing a live chat. Anyone who follows us on Patreon, subscribes to Patreon. I think Grace Petra is going to be joining us as well. I'm not entirely. She's never great at answering her texts. But great creating music. So Grace,
bit of shade there, a little bit of morning shade.
She's not. She's that's what I love. There's certain friends of mine where just out of nowhere, suddenly you'll receive an answer to that text from 2017, and you have to explain you've done that show now, but it was lovely of them to think about you. Anyway, we are joined by Chris Addison today, and Chris. We've already seen. I mean, the whole room is a show and tell.
We've investigated the room.
Yeah.
Much of this room. Do you want the? I've got two options. Do you want the battered leather case or the block of wood?
Oh, see, I would have gone case, but I feel like the wood has a story to tell.
Yeah,
stories to tell, Joe. The wood. This is a piece of the original Cutty Sark.
Huh.
When the Cutty Sark went on fire, I love the Cutty Sark. Like, I love it. I think it's an incredible. I loved it from when I was a kid, and I on the occasions that I used to venture to London, I was brought to London. We used to go to the Cutty Sark. I absolutely loved it. I love the romance of it. I love the idea of the race across the world to bring tea and coal and wool. Anyway, but particularly tea. So. A few years ago, the Cutty Sark went on fire, and it looked to be fairly doomed. But they restored it quite brilliantly. It's better than ever now. Actually, if you go,
you can do gigs on it in the old days. Yeah, I've done a gig on it.
Yeah, we were doing about 2 gigs have been cancelled that I was doing on that. So you can. There's one of the other venues where I won't be going now.
But I was quite obsessed with it. But my friend Simon is an extraordinary man. He over the years he's done lots of jobs. He was a theatre lighting designer, and then he's now an excellent baker in Charlton, not far from the Cutty Sark. But he also retrained as a boat builder, and there's very little work for boat builders of traditional boats except when the Cutty Sark goes on fire and they need to restore it. So he was personally involved in it, and I was around his house and he had a big load of bits of wood that were some of the burnt timber from the original ship that they couldn't reuse, which he was using for just to put on the fire, and so I begged a piece of it from him because I loved the ship so much. So this piece of wood has won the race to go around the world. Was the ship that did the China, Australia, London route over and over again. I keep this in my office.
Wow. I love the fact that your friend is based baker? No, I'm a boat builder now. Okay. Oh, by the way, I've got a boat. No, at the moment I'm a chiropodist. What is going on? No, moved on to dentist already. Look at the speed as I race through the alphabet of. But that's a lovely. The Cutty Sark, that brings back again. Of course, no one's doing things on the Easter holiday that we've normally. But that seems to me a typical trip to London would be. Now, Robin, do you want to go to the Cutty Sark or the Imperial War Museum?
Yeah, I never went to the museum until I was taking my own children. Actually, and that is that's an amazing place to go. But still, the Cutty Sark is great. It is great.
The Imperial War Museum's the Holocaust exhibition is quite remarkable and brilliantly. I think what is so amazing about the way that they curated it is the fact that most of it is not about what actually, you know, the Holocaust. It's about how you get led to that situation. So it's the story that leads to the fact that humans then decide they have the capability and that they should, you know, to do those.
But also the human effects, like literally personal effects. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget seeing kind of the piles of people's things, and unbearable.
Yeah, it's an amazing. So that seems to be that we should brighten it up by asking you about the wallet, because we've still got time for a double show and tell.
The wallet. No, wallet is it is a case. It's a case of well. Actually, it links. Because this is a set of opera glasses, right? These are they still work, but they're over 100 years old, and they belonged to my great grandparents. These are my great grandparents were Viennese Jews. My grandmother, who escaped to the UK before the Nazis took over in the Anschluss. She took me to Austria when I was 13 to visit my roots. And that's the first time I ever went to the opera. These were the opera glasses we took. And these glasses had belonged to her great-grandmother, but they had been hidden during the war. There were a number of things that were hidden by their... My great-grandfather was a businessman. They lived in an apartment in Vienna. They had a maid called Hedwig, who saved a bunch of stuff and hid a bunch of stuff from the Nazis, including I have a set of table linen that has the initials of my great grandfather in the corner. Again, over 100 years old, which we use every Christmas Day. Which seems like we should be using it every Passover, really, given that they were Jewish. But we use it every Christmas Day as a sort of fuck you to the Nazis. And these things, which I don't take to the opera anymore, but I could do, were one of the things that were hidden by Hedwig and saved for the family who reclaimed them from her after the war. So these survived. My great grandparents didn't survive the war. But these are some of the artifacts that did. Yeah.
Wow.
It's wonderful. So that is it's a fascinating thing. Sometimes when you read, I'm sure many people watching this have read some of Primo Levi's stories of what happened to him. If this be man or if this
is a man.
If this is a man.
C'est questo è un uomo. I only know that because my friend read it in the Italian.
Wow.
I read it in English. Sorry, this is a tedious extra thing. But whenever I think of the title, I think of it in Italian. But I've said it wrong anyway. It's people who can speak Italian. Anyway, sorry.
No, I was going to say, one of the things that I find fascinating reading those stories of those people who were incarcerated, tortured, survived, is how often when they came out, it was like they would go back to the places that were theirs and they'd be told, oh, no, it's not yours anymore. Everything's changed, hasn't it? And in such an incredible... I know there's two sides of the humanity that we saw from that, but that, those things that were kept, those things that were not... And that was the thing that I found that it just was quite nonchalantly kind of, oh, yeah, well, that was before the war, though, wasn't it?
But this is what Deborah Frances-White was talking about yesterday, this idea that normal is always over in these circumstances and that people's desire is to return to normal and that it's always been sort of obliterated.
There's
also there's the problem of, like, my uncle and his family recently visited Vienna, where they now they're falling over themselves in that city to kind of to welcome back the diaspora and to show you around and show and make amends as far as you can't make amends, but reach out a hand. And they went around and were sort of taken on a tour of the important places of the family's time and lifetime in Vienna, and they visited my grandmother's the apartment where she grew up. But you can't go in. You can't go into that apartment. You can't knock on the door and go, hey, hi. So our family we were kind of turfed out a few years ago by these guys because the people living in that apartment now have been. It's 80 years, and it's changed hands multiple times, and it's really hard to define what belongs to what at any given point. It's certainly not black and white, So you're right. Things don't go back to normal, and sort of unpicking what's right and what belongs to what is very, very hard. There are some cases where it's very clear, and reparations, need to be paid and all of that kind of stuff. But there are things like that. What do you say to those people? You can't. The other thing is to knock on somebody's door and go, "Listen, we don't want anything. We just wanted to see the place because this thing happened." Imagine being the family who live in there now, and that being a piece of information that's suddenly added to you about.
You're never going to sleep again, are you?
Holy, you can't do that. People, it's complicated.
Well, that's how I presume that those shows like Who Do You Think You Are, when they pretend that they've only just turned up at the doorstep. I think it's in that show, and they knock at the door and say, hello, I used to have the top room up here. Can I go up there? But, hello? Yeah, and I'm not sure how that those people haven't been prepared. That just so you know,
can I share a very...
going to come ringing your doorbell on Tuesday morning, and he's going to want to see the attic room because he thinks he's still got some posters from Look and Learn up there.
Can I share a very silly version of this, which is I went back to the house that I lived in till I was 12, and with my friend who is my oldest friend, she was my first friend in senior school, and she came with me, my friend Tasha, and we got there and knocked on the door, and it was the only people in were the 12-year-old and 15-year-old, which was really evocative and strange because that was really what would happen with me and my big sister. And so I was about 25 at the time, and I was like, excuse me, I grew up in this house, please may I look around? And I feel like the 12-year-old didn't know that he could say no, so he was like, oh, okay. So then I just looked around the whole house, and it was so bizarre because obviously it was smaller than I remembered and everything had changed, but some things were the same, and it was too much and too little. But my parents had a lot of books growing up because we're hoarders and because that's what my mum values and that kind of thing. And I really distinctly remembered that in a space where there'd been all these bookshelves and this old piano that my dad had rescued from a house being demolished, all there was a giant display shelf of this size Yankee candles. Isn't that the weirdest fucking thing? Isn't that the weirdest thing you've ever heard in your candles that big? Just 100 of them. And the parents were out. So I was like, who are these people? But it blew my mind, and it was like, again, it was just such a strange feeling.
I went up to the attic, and the elk was still there.
Yeah, so that's what happened when I went back to the place I grew up.
But you shouldn't. I'm not. We were. When was it? It must have been October half term, just gone. Right, we were up in the Lake District, and we were driving back. We were going to go via my parents, who live south of Manchester now. But I grew up in Manchester, just off the the M62, right? So we were on the M62, and I went, okay, just on impulse, I'm going to show the kids where I grew up. Couldn't be less bothered about it.
Oh no!
Interesting, but it has no. You want the thing to mean something, but of course it doesn't mean.
It's not in their bones. It's not there.
It's not in their bones, exactly, and maybe. Later on when they've got their own sort of sense of nostalgia, the notion of somebody else's sense of nostalgia, you can appropriate that a little bit or understand at least what it is that you're seeing or what it means to the person who's showing you. Anyway, but I grew up in a place called Worsley, which is quite an interesting little part of Manchester. It's where the Industrial Revolution started, because it's where the first canal was built, the Bridgewater Canal, for coal mines coming out of the canals going into the mines in Worsley. So that all the canals are still sort of there, and there's a village green and all of this kind of stuff. And I showed them all this, and then I thought, and then we'll go and see my house. And then I thought, no, we will not go and see my house, because the idea of going and seeing the house that I last saw, I mean, my parents moved out of it 12 years ago, so I was still, fully grown adult. But the idea of going and seeing something not quite right. They'll have done something to the front wall. They'll have changed some of the paintwork. The front door will be different. Something will, and that the idea of that being my last sight of that house. I don't want that.
I mean, if I could unsee those candles, I would.
Exactly.
Don't get me wrong.
What if I got the whole place was just one big Yankee candle?
Ugh. And the ones that smell a bit like cinnamon. Ugh.
Well, that's their whole thing.
I went back to the house and it smelled of bay leaves. It never used to smell. Yeah, I've done that. I was doing Greenham Arts Centre a few years ago, and that's where my gran lived just around the corner from there. And I was early and I wandered down, and I shouldn't have gone back, because until if you don't go back, the pristine thing, in the maisonette in Bushy Heath, where my other grandmother lived, there is still a weird little glass thing where she keeps the sugar with a little doily over the top. All of that if you return. And I think that very often with the house where my dad lives now, he's 90 this week, and it's the house that I was born in. And I've already started thinking about how strange it's going to be that one day I will walk through that village and I'll go, that was, and it's a strange, the way the bricks and Mortimer. Bricks and Mortimer. I've been reading Hand of the Baskervilles. I do apologise.
Bricks and Mortimer is my favourite daytime detective show.
Yeah, it's my favourite duo from the early 90s.
They were sort of ragger influenced. I seem to remember.
We've run out of time, so we're gonna end with I mentioned before, Femi, who is a really brilliant blues guitarist. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us, Chris Addison. And we never got around to talking about the fact that we both have useful glasses for being impressionists, because there we go. I wonder who he's going to be now. And just to mention a couple of things, Patreon, as we said, we're going to be doing a Patreon only kind of Q&A tonight, and Grace Peacher is going to be joining us as well. If you do get a chance, please do subscribe. For all the other stuff, we make a lot of other stuff when it's not also this, as well as this. There's the book Shambles, lots of science content, lots of stuff like that, and that's what we use the Patreon money to just keep making more stuff. It's not to make money for us, it's to make more stuff. Thank you very much, everyone who's been supporting this. I'll mention a couple of things, which is I mentioned Doc Brown's on tomorrow, Mark Gatiss on Monday. Also, about midday today, we had a big debate about this. Back at the end of January, I hosted an event which was the Goodies 50th anniversary event with Tim, Graham and Bill. And we were going to put it out this week. And then, of course, on Sunday, Tim died. And we thought about it a lot, whether we should put out the show this week. And we thought through it and we decided yes. So at about midday today, that 50th anniversary show, which was a really wonderful night, and I think one of the things that you will get a sense from it is the fact that Tim was in no way dimmed, or sometimes the narrative we get now of there's some very unpleasant, I think, ethical talks about those who are the collateral damage of the situation, and you will hear that Tim was as vibrant. He did 6 events over about 48 hours, all of them he was absolutely brilliant on. So we're going to be putting out the Goodies 50th anniversary show, and I hope that you enjoy it. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Thank you for your support. Josie, I'll see you tomorrow. Chris, I hope to
see you tonight, actually.
I'll see you tonight, 8:30.
8 o'clock.
I'll just quickly mention as well, Femi, they've got an album out, Femi and Marco. So Bandcamp, iTunes, all those places, Femi and Marco. Here they are. Thank you.
Hi guys, I've been doing a few songs. And the first song I've chosen is Rose Collins, made famous by Mississippi John Hurt. to this shambles, got it shining true and true. Angels laid them away. Angels laid them away. They lay them 6 feet underneath the clay. Angels laid them away. And their friends, oh hey, they haul to see Paul loose and a new graveyard. Angels laid them away. Angels laid them away. They lay them 6 feet underneath the clay. Angels laid them away. That's Lewis Collins. I hope you enjoyed that, and you're keeping safe and well, and take care.